Canada is strategically realigning, strengthening ties with Nordic NATO partners to secure Arctic infrastructure, mineral supply routes, and a unified northern strategy. As regional pressures rise, Ottawa is charting a path that reduces overdependence on Washington and builds resilience through northern cooperation. Welcome back to Geocapitalist, where we decode global wealth, one power shift at a time. Today we're uncovering why Canada is teaming up with the Nordics, and why the US can't stop it. If you're watching Canada's deepening Arctic alliances with Sweden, Finland, and beyond, hit subscribe. Could this be a foundational shift in northern geopolitics? Canada's Arctic policy is entering a new chapter. Instead of relying solely on US alignment, Ottawa is cultivating a network of Nordic allies, with Sweden and Finland at the center. This shift reflects a growing realization. The Arctic is no longer a backwater, but a front line of trade, mineral supply, and security cooperation. Sweden and Finland's NATO membership has unlocked fresh opportunities. Joint defense exercises, intelligence sharing, and infrastructure planning are now on the table. Canada views this as a chance to plug into a stronger collective where Arctic priorities align with democratic northern states rather than being filtered through Washington. The move is not anti-American, but pragmatic. By weaving its strategy into Nordic frameworks, Canada reduces its strategic dependence while amplifying its Arctic voice. Swedish officials have stressed collaboration on sustainable infrastructure and Arctic resilience. Finnish leaders, with decades of icebreaking and northern engineering expertise, see a natural fit with Canada's industrial capabilities. This marks a significant policy recalibration. Canada isn't walking away from its U.S. partnership, but it is no longer willing to anchor its northern future to American priorities alone. Instead, it's pursuing a multilateral northern vision, one where Stockholm, Helsinki, and Ottawa pool strengths to shape the Arctic's next chapter. In a move rich with symbolism, Canada is exploring alternatives to its long-standing commitment to American fighter jets. Ottawa has expressed new interest in Sweden's Gripen aircraft as a potential counterweight to the previously selected F-35 program. The Gripen, developed by Saab, is more than just a fighter jet. It embodies Sweden's philosophy of cost-efficient, resilient, and easily maintainable defense platforms, well-suited for Arctic conditions. While Canada has already signed agreements to procure U.S.-built F-35s, revisiting the procurement framework sends a clear signal. Ottawa is willing to diversify its defense industrial alignment. This isn't purely about aircraft, it's about establishing industrial synergies that tie Canadian defense suppliers to Nordic innovation. Sweden's defense ecosystem is renowned for its integration of civilian technologies, advanced materials, and sustainable systems. Canada's interest reflects a desire to move beyond dependency on U.S. suppliers and cultivate alternatives in case of future strategic divergence. Industry insiders note that Canada's reassessment is less about canceling the F-35 contract outright and more about balancing its procurement portfolio. Even partial collaboration with Saab could anchor new joint projects, technology-sharing agreements, and industrial offsets that benefit Canadian aerospace hubs. The Gripen option highlights a broader pivot, embedding Canada within a Nordic-oriented industrial defense network. For Ottawa, this signals independence, resilience, and the will to avoid being cornered by a single supplier. In the Arctic theater, that diversification could prove decisive. Beyond fighter jets, industrial collaboration is accelerating in Arctic-ready equipment. A telling example is the partnership between Canadian armored vehicle producer Rochelle and Swedish steel manufacturer Swebor. Together, they're advancing joint production that serves both defense and northern infrastructure needs. Rochelle, known for modular armored vehicles, has grown rapidly by meeting security demands at home and abroad. Swebor contributes high-strength steel designed for extreme conditions. The collaboration is not just about vehicles, it's about establishing a joint supply chain that can withstand northern climates. This has ripple effects. A Canadian Nordic industrial footprint strengthens both economies, diversifies sourcing, and builds shared resilience. It also signals a broader trend. Arctic-focused production is moving toward international joint ventures. Canada's Arctic ambitions increasingly depend on partnerships that can leverage expertise beyond North America. For Ottawa, this is a hedge against supply chain fragility. If geopolitical frictions disrupt U.S.-sourced materials or components, Canadian industry will already be anchored to European alternatives. For Sweden, the partnership expands market access and positions Nordic firms as key suppliers in the North American Arctic build-out. This isn't only about military applications. Vehicles designed for Arctic durability also support northern mining, infrastructure development, and even civilian logistics in remote Canadian territories. In other words, Canada's alliance with Swebor represents a blueprint. Merge industrial expertise across borders to equip the Arctic with technology that can last decades. Few tools are more critical to Arctic sovereignty than icebreakers, and here too, Canada is looking northward to deepen collaboration. Finnish shipbuilders, with decades of experience designing state-of-the-art icebreakers, are now in discussions with Canadian partners to co-develop vessels tailored for Arctic infrastructure, shipping, and exploration. Canada's own icebreaker fleet is aging, with many vessels decades old. Upgrading capacity has been delayed by procurement bottlenecks and funding disputes. By teaming up with Finland, Ottawa sees an opportunity to accelerate modernization while embedding its strategy within a proven Nordic supply chain. Finnish firms bring unmatched design expertise, from hull innovation to advanced propulsion systems capable of cutting through thick polar ice. For Canada, the collaboration could mean faster delivery timelines, shared costs, and access to technologies already tested in similar conditions. The benefits extend beyond sovereignty patrols. Icebreakers are vital for supporting northern communities, maintaining year-round shipping access, and enabling the flow of minerals and goods. As global warming reshapes Arctic sea routes, demand for icebreakers will only increase. By anchoring its shipbuilding program to Finland, Canada not only solves an immediate capability gap, but also embeds itself in Europe's broader Arctic industrial network. The result, a fleet that's more resilient, internationally connected, and strategically aligned with allies who share northern priorities. This joint shipbuilding initiative represents more than hardware. It's a symbol of Canada's Arctic pivot, linking industrial policy with regional security and economic opportunity. Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand recently emphasized Canada's new Arctic policy as one that integrates economics, infrastructure, and defense into a single cohesive vision. For decades, these priorities were treated separately. Today, Ottawa is building a holistic northern framework, with Nordic partners central to its execution. Critical minerals, Arctic ports, and defense cooperation are no longer siloed. Instead, they're treated as interdependent parts of one ecosystem. This mirrors The Nordic model, where Finland and Sweden routinely integrate energy security, industrial planning, and defense readiness into unified strategies. Canada's pivot reflects a recognition that northern challenges require cross-sector solutions. For example, critical mineral mines cannot operate without stable infrastructure and secure supply chains. Ports and shipping routes require protection from disruption, whether environmental or geopolitical. Defense assets, like icebreakers and surveillance systems, underpin both economic and strategic activity. By embedding its policy in this integrated framework, Canada amplifies its leverage in negotiations with allies. It demonstrates that it can contribute not just troops or equipment, but also integrated planning that enhances collective resilience. Nordic governments welcome this, seeing Canada as a partner that finally aligns on strategic coherence. The integrated approach also carries a domestic message. Arctic development will not be piecemeal. It will be systematic, future-oriented, and tied to Canada's role as a northern power. In short, Annan's framework signals a pivot from reactive policy to proactive strategy, where Canada no longer simply reacts to pressures, but actively shapes the Arctic order. Canada's Arctic partnerships signal more than cooperation. They're a deliberate step toward strategic autonomy. For decades, Canada relied on the U.S. umbrella for northern security and logistics. That dependency left Ottawa vulnerable to Washington's shifting priorities. Today, the pivot toward Nordic allies is rewriting that script. Strategic autonomy doesn't mean isolation. It means diversifying alliances so that no single partner dictates the future. Canada's collaboration with Sweden and Finland demonstrates that it can stand on its own terms while still contributing to collective security. This is being tested in practice. Nordic partners are co-developing projects in infrastructure, energy, and defense that allow Canada to reduce reliance on American suppliers. If disputes arise, whether over trade, technology, or Arctic sovereignty, Canada will have alternatives ready. The concept resonates in Europe, where strategic autonomy has become a central theme. Canada's adoption of similar principles signals alignment with European thinking, giving Ottawa stronger credibility in Brussels, Stockholm, and Helsinki. Domestically, this pivot strengthens Canada's sovereignty narrative. Arctic communities want assurance that their development is driven by Canadian priorities, not foreign dictates. Partnerships with Nordic democracies, states with shared governance values and similar geographies, reassure citizens that autonomy can coexist with cooperation. By practicing strategic autonomy in the Arctic, Canada positions itself as more than a junior partner. It becomes a northern power in its own right, one with options, leverage, and long-term resilience. Canada's Arctic pivot is also about economics. The renewed investment in northern infrastructure pairs with growing interest in Arctic supply routes, especially via Churchill, Manitoba, once a struggling northern port and now a potential gateway to Europe. The Canadian government has backed efforts to rebuild the rail line to Churchill, restoring connectivity for mineral exports, agriculture, and energy. This opens the possibility of using Arctic corridors as competitive alternatives to southern routes. The payoff could be faster, cheaper shipping to Europe, bypassing congested Atlantic channels. Nordic partners are watching closely. Sweden and Finland both rely on secure mineral and agricultural flows, and a functioning Churchill corridor would link their markets to Canada's resources with unprecedented efficiency. Joint investment in Arctic shipping could create a win-win: new markets for Canadian producers and supply security for Nordic industries. Innovation is key. Canada is exploring digital monitoring, green propulsion, and climate-resilient infrastructure for Arctic shipping. These align with Nordic priorities on sustainability and advanced engineering. The result could be an Arctic trade corridor that isn't just functional but instastaks, men and thou sau betiao ben maus darasaik. Edge. Critics note challenges, harsh weather, high costs, and uncertain demand. Yet Canada's Nordic alignment makes the risk more manageable. With European partners sharing investment and technology, the Churchill Project and related corridors gain momentum. If successful, this trade innovation could transform Canada's Arctic from a marginal region into a strategic gateway, one that links North America to Europe through resilient northern infrastructure. At its core, Canada's Arctic pivot is about future-proofing the continental North. By aligning with Nordic partners, Ottawa is weaving resilience into every layer: defense, trade, infrastructure, and governance. Future-proofing means anticipating climate change impacts on northern communities and shipping routes. Nordic expertise in adaptation, from resilient housing to green transport, provides Canada with tested models it can localize. It also means ensuring that resource development, from critical minerals to renewable energy, occurs within sustainable frameworks that last decades. Partnerships also reduce financial risk. Large-scale Arctic projects are expensive, but cost-sharing with Finland, Sweden, and European institutions spreads the burden. For Canada, this makes ambitious projects viable without overloading public budgets. For the Nordics, it means securing access to critical resources in a more stable political environment. The U.S. will remain a partner, but the Nordics now anchor Canada's northern diversification. This hedging strategy positions Ottawa as a key broker in the Arctic, capable of linking North America and Europe across trade, security, and innovation. Ultimately, Canada's pivot is less about today's headlines than tomorrow's map. As melting ice opens new corridors and resource demand accelerates, those who built resilient partnerships early will hold the advantage. Canada's Nordic alignment ensures it is not left behind. With this shift, the Arctic is no longer Canada's periphery. It is the frontier of national strategy, global trade, and democratic cooperation. And there you have it. This is why Canada is teaming up with the Nordics, and the U.S. can't stop it. If you found this breakdown valuable, watch our next video. It connects directly to what's unfolding right now. And don't forget to subscribe. This was Geocapitalist, where we decode global wealth one power shift at a time. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.